Our next unit, Unit 7, is going to be on evolution. And in this unit, we're going to talk about the process of natural selection and how it actually leads to the evolution of organisms. We'll talk about evidence of evolution, patterns of evolution, and how we can interpret that data using mathematical formulas as well. So in this introduction, we're really just first of all looking at the word evolution. And it kind of makes sense for us to have talked about DNA and protein synthesis ahead of time because DNA makes evolution possible. Because of the changes in DNA, we have evolution. Along with evolution, natural selection kind of goes hand in hand because natural selection is our process or our mechanism for changing those populations. But if we look at evolution by itself, the term evolution means change over time. We're not just saying the change within organisms, we could use the term evolution for change in automobiles, in transportation, in music, and fashion. Things are evolving or changing all the time. But when we're talking in biology, evolution is going to be specific to populations. You can't have a single organism evolving. It could mutate, it could gain some sort of adaptation. It could have some sort of acquired trait that makes it more fit for that environment. But the one organism by itself isn't evolving, but a population or a group of organisms of one species could lead that change. For that change over time to occur, this is going to have to occur within the genome of the organism or in the gene pool. What does that mean? In evolution, we're going to have some sort of change in the DNA. When we have that change in the DNA, we're going to add those genes or those alleles to the gene pool. And when we add that DNA to the gene pool, well, now we can spread this to the other organisms through mating, through reproduction, and therefore change the population as a whole. So when you're looking over at this image on the right here, this is a little timeline, a little evolution timeline. And what you see are years, actually in the billions of years ago. When you're looking at this image, what they're showing you first of all, and important dates to just keep in mind, is this 4.6 billion years ago. This is when we've determined to be the formation of the Earth. At approximately 4 billion years ago, we have the formation of the first cells. How do we know this? We have evidence of what's known as microfossils, which are cell remnants. Moving on from there, 3 billion years ago, we have our first eukaryotic cells with an oxidative metabolism and some photosynthesis occurring as well. And about 2 billion years ago, that's when we had our multicellular organisms. In this next little section, we're just going to kind of mention something that you might find a little familiar from Bio 1, and that's how did life evolve? And we're talking about life in the smallest unit, which is the cell. So we're talking about life in the form of cells. And so what were our first cells like? Well, it turns out, and if you guys remember someone named Lynn Margulis, a scientist that was kind of briefly mentioned in Bio 1, he kind of led some of this that we're going to talk about. But when we have our first cells, you have to think about, well, what was the formation of the earth, that early environment like? That early environment was very volatile. We had no oxygen. We had very rough environment, very rough weather, and so it's very difficult for organisms now to have lived then. Actually, nearly impossible. So the first cells that we know of were, first of all, prokaryotic, which hopefully you remember means that they're very simple cells, they're very small cells, they have no nucleus. In addition to being prokaryotic, our cells were also heterotrophic, meaning they did not make their own food. They had to gain food from their environment. They had to eat food. And also, let's write the "and" sign here, and also they were anaerobic. You could not use oxygen gas because there was no oxygen gas freely available in the atmosphere. From there and through some changes, random changes over time, changes in the gene pool caused for our next trend to occur. And notice I'm saying next trend, not next cell. What we're going to see here, these are different variations of cells that just added on to each other. We are not taking away the first cell. We're not saying that there's no more of these. We're just saying that here's some other types. We still had prokaryotic cells. However, some of them were able to become autotrophic. In some way, they were able to gain the ability to perform photosynthesis. Once they formed the ability to do photosynthesis, they were, or not just necessarily photosynthesis, I'm sorry, maybe even chemosynthesis, autotrophic, meaning they were able to make their own food. After that, our next trend is that we had cells that were now still prokaryotic, however, they were also aerobic. Some of those autotrophic cells must have created some oxygen, and when they created some oxygen, we were able to have some aerobic cells now. And after that, we were able to finally have our eukaryotic cells. And with our eukaryotic cells came the idea of what's known as endosymbiosis. Endosymbiosis was when our mitochondria.
Good afternoon, students and staff. It's time for the afternoon announcements.
And chloroplasts.
Thank you for a wonderful first day of second semester. Students, you only have 89 training days till you're done with this year, so you need to keep that in mind. It's 59 degrees and sunny outside, and we have one bus change. Bus 1147 is here today for 567. The following students have messages in the main office: Demetrius Heath, Wendy Baca, Natalie Hensel, Simon Stroda, Courtney Hull, and Sarah Carlton. Following announcements: National Honor Society meeting Thursday, January 21st, immediately after school in room 803. FBLA will meet this Thursday, January 22nd in room 406 at 2:30. All members planning to attend the State Leadership Conference must attend. The January driver's ed class will begin on Wednesday, January 21st at 2:30 in room 506. Only students who have registered and paid online will be admitted. There will be a DECA meeting tomorrow from 2:30 to 3 in room 718. A member of the yearbook staff will be there to interview and take pictures. And staff, a reminder, we do have a faculty meeting today. So I'd like to start that meeting by 2:25, and it'll be very short and with just some key important information. And we have some student information.
Hey guys, this is Megan and Jordan from Women's Soccer. Just a reminder, we have workouts starting next week. They will be Monday through Thursday from 2:30 to 4:15.
Also, this is just a reminder that we have a meeting tomorrow from 2:30 to 3 in Coach Ferry's office. Everyone who is planning on playing in the spring must attend. This is to get your eligibility papers. If you can't make it Thursday, you need to see Coach Ferry as soon as possible. Thanks.
Hey guys, it's Shelby from FCA. This is just a reminder that we have a meeting tomorrow in room 957 at 6:50. Our very own Kat Wright will be speaking, so make sure to come out and hear her speak.
Bulldogs, it's Shelby from Student Council. I have the names of the reverse homecoming court, so if you'll please listen up, and if the following students will please come to the front office to collect information sheets. For freshmen, we have Namdi Scott and Chase Doherty. Sophomores are Donnie Smith and Jalen Moore. Juniors are Tanner Barapapa and Benny LeMay. And seniors are Nahom Adhanom, Elijah Paul, Creighton Howard, Riley Craig, Hayden Brown, and Darius Reed. Again, congrats guys, and if you'll please come to the front office to get information sheets.
Please go ahead and just copy this down, and we'll talk about this information tomorrow. Make sure you look through the rest of your lecture tools and answer the rest of the questions that go along with this unit, and that you complete your note card as well. And on a final note, genetic variation is going to lead to changes in the phenotype of an organism. And these variations can accumulate and eventually changing the population. You late. Okay, so we'll talk about the rest of this tomorrow. Make sure you just take a minute to look back over, read it, and then answer your questions and finish your note card.